Alright. Let's, guess I'll pop over there real fast just to make sure it works. We don't have an incident like last week. PHP. Oh shit, it's picking up my voice. It's picking up my voice even now. Like I have the scene playing that my voice shouldn't be on, and somehow my voice is streaming. Yeah, I think it might be the channel issue. So people who are tuning in right now are probably very confused as to what they're watching. This is not the podcast, not yet. All right. Yeah, we actually need to. Let me switch over scenes and. I just retweeted. Shit, I meant to do that before I even tweeted. I'm gonna switch over scenes and make sure that we can hear you. Alright. Well, that didn't work. Alright. Oh, do you need me to share my screen so you can see?
Yes.
You like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you seeing it?
Yep.
Oh. Alright. Alright, let's make sure. Talk or something, like wave your hand
Check
and
1
talk.
2. I'm Tom. I'm doing a little dance.
Do a dance. Alright. It's up there. Let's see. Oh yeah. I already hear you. You sound low though.
There we go. I'll fix it in post.
Fix it in post. All right. Well, I think that's gonna be good enough. All right. Let me stop watching the video now because that's just gonna mess with my head. All right. Do you want to retweet or anything before we get started?
Sure.
I'm just gonna get started. We're streaming, so we'll go ahead and start it. Not as professional as we were doing there a little bit with the cutover, but nobody really expects professionalism out of us. It's fine. We have so few people who actually watch the live stream anyways. Alright.
I should open up Discord.
Yes. Yes, you should. Let's see. Matter of fact, when you do open up Discord, post something to Discord and let's see if it live updates. Because that hasn't been working for a while. Alright. It's that time of the week again, and you're listening to episode 157 of PHP Ugly, the podcast your mother warned you about. I'm your host, Eric Van Johnson, and with me, as always, by my side, Thomas Rideout.
Hello.
Hey, Thomas, how are you doing?
Good. How long does the music last?
Do you still hear it?
Yeah. You don't
So
see
the
me
stream-
dancing?
The stream shouldn't hear it. It's off on OBS. You're just hearing it because I don't know. I don't know why you're hearing it. Let me pause it. There we go. It's paused. Remind me, and I'll turn it back on for the stream later. I almost feel like we should just play it all the time in the background, just a little music back there. But oh hey, look, our Discord updated live.
Excellent.
Lively. So if by chance any of our Discord people are listening, your Discord post should be posting, I guess. I noticed that Twitter. I jumped on Twitter as I do before we start the show, and noticed I guess Twitter was down today.
I saw that there was some kind of issue with Twitter going on.
Oh,
I don't really care though, because I don't like Twitter a whole lot.
oh, you don't? See, I like Twitter. I don't understand the whole, you know, the president had his little social media party thing today where he intentionally did not invite the big companies like Twitter, Facebook, and Google, the
Yeah.
ones that he says that are excluding him or excluding white right wing. Hey, who asked you? I don't know what all the hubbub is about. First thing, I mean, him criticizing Twitter of all people. It's like you are who you are today because of Twitter. Like if
Right.
Twitter wasn't around, you would not be the person you think you are today. But I
Well, this is partially in response to Twitter saying that because they effectively can't ban the president, then they're going to start fact checking him in his own tweets so that when he says something that is outright incorrect, it
mhm.
disclaims it on his Twitter handle.
Wait, really? I never saw this.
Yeah, this is one of the many proposals for how to deal with a president who doesn't agree with how facts operate.
Well, so time out. I'm definitely not a Trump fan by any stretch of the imagination. But are they singling him out? I mean, I know a lot of other horrible dictators who they should probably be doing this to
Sure.
before. I mean,
The
are they
the
are
issue
they
at
intentionally singling him out, or is this like a new quote unquote feature that they're introducing?
they're singling him out because he has essentially violated the terms of service repeatedly, and
This is true.
people keep
I
calling for him to be removed from Twitter for violations of the terms of service.
mm-hmm.
But Twitter would then be engaging in an enormously lengthy legal battle if they were to try and remove the president from Twitter. So they
Mm,
have to respond in some way for these high value or these high profile people who consistently violate the terms of service.
mm.
And yeah, it's a mess, man. It's such a nightmare.
So what is his gripe with? So I understand Facebook, and again, I think it's ironic that he pointed out Facebook because I felt that Facebook has been one of the social media streams that have been pointed to of saying this is why we have a shitty president because these sort of platforms can be manipulated and you are only seeing this and that, and Facebook was one of them because Facebook, you have your quote unquote friends and people you follow, but Facebook decides, it curates what you see and how you see it. And Twitter, I've always felt like Twitter was more of a so you can tell Twitter, hey, give me the stuff you think I'll be interested in first, but you can also turn that off. And with Twitter,
Yeah.
Twitter is different than Facebook for me because you're very deliberate on who you follow on Twitter. Like Facebook, I have family members who friend me, and what am I going to do? Not friend them back? So of course I friend them, and that's where things get a little murky. And I don't know. I feel like Twitter is very different than Facebook with as far as you curating the lists you want to see. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Uh, Give me 1 second, because I can give you the the exact problem that we have.
Okay, while you're
Um,
looking that up, I do know that. I mean, like Google again. I know there's been this huge pushback not only from the the extreme right or the right in general, but from a lot of content providers on complaining about how Google might be favoriting their content over some other content creators' work and pushing their work down. And so I know there's been a lot of back and forth in this, and in this realm, it's meant to be very political. But I think I think YouTube has bigger issues as far as the way they have to make a determination how they're handling streams and recommendations and things like that. That seems to be a general kind of dialogue that's going all across the YouTube platform. Is hey, I was making six figures a year, now I'm making 10K because YouTube decided that they didn't want to promote my stuff anymore because it was in competition with their stuff, or they didn't agree with what I was saying, or this or that and the other thing.
So there's this thing called Section 230.
Oh, I didn't realize you're bringing up Section 230.
Yes.
I have
So
no idea what that is.
Section 230 provides protections for websites that aggregate data instead of published data.
Mm-hmm.
And Google is protected under Section 230, where if they're linking to somebody's personal blog that has death threats on it, they're not responsible for the content of the blog.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Twitter is a publishing platform, so they're responsible for the content of what's put onto their site.
Hmm.
So Twitter, now this hasn't gone through a legal test yet as far as I know, but Twitter is in the situation where they have to police their own users because they can be held legally responsible for what the users do. So when somebody is stoking the flames of hatred on Twitter, they have to do something about it.
Hmm. Okay.
And they're stuck in a weird situation right now where there are people who are prominent that are getting banned from Twitter, getting deplatformed, like the Infowars guy, Alex Jones.
Hmm.
They're getting kicked off of Twitter, and they're throwing this huge First Amendment rights censorship thing in the air, fully not understanding that the First Amendment does not apply to platforms not provided by the
Companies.
government.
Right. Right. Private
So
companies.
they can suck it, but they're still throwing a giant fit about it, and it's gonna be a problem in the future when these radicalized people are losing their voice online and blaming corporations for it. Um, and they're just stuck in a bad situation with the president who is continuously violating the terms of service, and then they can't ban him because the outcry would be enormous.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to mitigate their responsibility in some way or another as to what he says and their responsibility to people who can read it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there was also a judicial ruling that the president could not block people on Twitter this week. Uh, yeah, that had to be done in 2019.
That had to be said, huh?
Yep. Yeah, he was banning people who were criticizing him, and judge came down with a ruling that said you have to provide equal access to the president under the law, so you cannot ban people.
Well, and he's a little bit of a weird scenario. I mean,
A
he's a
little bit.
weird bird just in general, but he also doesn't tweet under the president's official Twitter handle. He still tweets under his quote unquote personal handle,
Right.
which is weird.
I've seen that he does occasionally tweet through the presidential handle, but I think that's all handled by somebody else. It doesn't appear to be his words
Mm-hmm.
most of the time.
Because they make sense.
Yeah, they're chained together in a way that's reasonable and logical.
All
But
right.
there's also the issue that his phone is not an official phone. That's one of the reasons he
Mm-hmm.
can tweet, is that
Mm-hmm.
the Secret Service mandates a secure phone for the president, but he refuses and uses his own private phone.
Hmm. I can't see what could go wrong there. I
I
mean,
don't
it would
know.
just be like somebody using their own private server for email.
Well, he
What
does
could
that too.
possibly be wrong with that? Oh.
Yeah, Jared and Ivanka both have private email servers as well.
Okay, we should probably get off of the off of the political. I really hate this topic.
I can't say I disagree.
Oh my God! So I did. I think we had to talk about it a little bit because of what was going on today. But yeah, that could be an entire show. This and we're not. We're
Do you have
bad.
a
We're a
lot for
bad enough
today's
show.
show?
I got a few things to talk about. What about yourself?
I got a handful of stuff to look at.
All right. Anything good?
A
I
few
got some
good
funny
things,
stuff.
a few classic doom and gloom throwbacks.
Well, we had a big doom and gloom this past week, right? Or well,
That
first
one's
thing
that one's
we
all
have to
you. Doesn't affect
we
me.
we have to apologize. Well, why does it not affect you?
I don't have a Mac.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It is just me. So we weren't on last week because it turned out that our show happened to fall on our country's Independence Day, and we were out watching fire. Were you out watching fireworks, Thomas?
I did catch some fireworks. Yeah. There's no. I
Yeah.
didn't go to the big events that are around here.
I'm
Despite
not a huge firework guy myself. But yeah, it was good. It was July 4th, so we skipped last week, and we're going to be skipping a week coming up. Not next week, but we'll probably skip the following week because I'll be in New York City for Laracon.
Laracon,
Yeah, I'm gonna miss you. Why don't you come out, man? Your boss would have paid for it.
I'm going to PHP World. That's my trip this year.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go. Well, all
That's
three of us will be together at PHP World.
Yeah, it'll be my opportunity to talk to John for the first time in God knows how many months.
Probably since Wave. Oh, since I see.
Since
Yeah,
since Frisbee started back up again.
if it makes you feel any better, I haven't seen him in weeks, so I don't. All right, so we're back on track for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll take another break, and we will be back. But yeah, as far as this week, the big doom and gloom thing that happened to us Mac users is if you ever have used the meeting software of Zoom, Zoom, um, it's just like Hangouts or GoToMeeting or any of those things, except this one had a little bit of a vulnerability to it. It turns out that if you installed the Zoom app on your Mac, that a malicious website could just turn on your webcam for you and record you. And apparently Zoom, installed a little running server on your Mac, probably without your knowledge. So that
It's in
was
the terms of
fun.
service. Didn't you read the terms of service?
Yeah, absolutely. As I was clicking through to the meeting I was late for, it's like, yes, yes, I'm 5 minutes late. Just let me in.
Yeah, it's a messy one. They had a standard port. The service was always running, and if you pulled up a website that just requested access, Zoom gave access. And boy, some of the details are bizarre. Um,
What do you mean?
so, because of how this service that was running on localhost, this was a web service that was running on localhost, because of how it communicated to other applications that were not running on localhost, then the developers were running into some CORS issues. CORS is the cross domain security information sharing stuff.
Mm,
So, in order to circumvent these CORS issues, the web server generates an image, and the dimensions of the image represent the status codes of the web server. So a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image meant successful connection. 1 pixel by 2 pixel was start download, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then 6 pixel by 1 pixel was a fail invalid domain error. So this was just a hack to deal with cross origin resource sharing that they didn't properly understand, implemented poorly, and left every computer that the thing was installed on publicly open to being hacked.
mm, mm.
just bizarre. Just so
Just
weird.
goes to show you, as quick as you go to install software nowadays. I mean, even still to this day, it's bad software is bad software, and you just never know when you're exposing yourself. Much like me at the park that time. I mean, I just didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah. So what if it was a little breezy? It was room temperature air.
There were new shorts. I didn't know. Expose yourself. What do you got? What do you got going on? Give me
Well,
something good.
following up on the bad news train, if we're going to open with that, YouTube has started banning infosec videos.
Mm. Yeah, we were
Uh,
talking about that a little earlier.
they have a new policy that states uh, instructional hacking and phishing, showing users how to bypass secure computer systems, is banned. So the
What?
thriving community of infosec education stuff out there on YouTube is now toast.
Hmm. That hurts.
It is. It's a real bummer.
Hmm.
I mean, if there's a vulnerability in software and a video comes out to let everybody know that this vulnerability exists and how to mitigate it and why, then you can't have it on YouTube. You're gonna have to host it somewhere else, Vimeo or something.
Yeah, that ultimately that's what's going to happen. This is going to give birth to another video platform that's just going to take off. That's going to get some legs to it. Because up until recently, I mean, there's a couple of others out there, but nobody really holds a candle to YouTube. I mean, YouTube is just this monster that's just running over everybody.
Well, you know what people have been doing is petitioning Pornhub to run a safe for work domain.
Mm,
Uh,
I'm sorry. Well, first off, let me. This is like a
Break
throwback,
that
man.
down.
We have buttery crumpets and Gishu back in Discord, which is awesome. Haven't seen those two in forever. All right, what did you just say about Pornhub?
People have been petitioning Pornhub to launch a safe for work domain to compete directly with YouTube.
Wouldn't that be something? I mean, that would be. You know, you never know. I mean, that would be one of those stories where, like, 10 years, 20 years, you're talking to your son, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, Pornhub used to be, adult videos. It used to be porn. That's what Pornhub stood for, was porn." And your great grandson will be, "What are you talking about, Grandpa? Take your medication. You're weird."
Uh,
Wouldn't it be? Wouldn't that just be as hysterical as if this was the events that, like, how, like, words will get different meanings as the as time goes on, and if porn now starts to mean this sort of stuff, like these edgy videos that YouTube won't allow you to won't host anymore, like these hacker videos, and that's what everybody's calling porn now. It's like, how kooky would that be?
I'm all for it.
Frontal. We got Frontal. We got Shutter here. Frontal. Everybody's here. Everybody. Nice blur. Nice blur. Thank you. You don't want to see what's back here anymore. We were trying to blur her face, but it just wouldn't work. So yeah, I don't know. That would be weird, man. I'd like to see something like that. You doing any coding?
I haven't been doing a whole lot lately. It's just been some sort of simple maintenance stuff. But what I have been doing is playing with Docker.
Docker. I got a good Docker story for you, but I'm gonna let you start because I saw
Well,
your ticket out there.
I got something from you. I got Lazy
Mm-hmm.
Docker.
Lazy Docker written in Go. It's a completely self-sustaining executable Go application. Lazy Docker, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a command line with mouse support, full color support, and it just manages everything about your Docker stuff. It tells you your services, your containers, your images, gives you statuses on everything, what volumes are loaded and unloaded by it. And then you even get these really nice statistics breakdowns
Yeah.
for what your containers are doing and what your load on your containers is. I mean, it's just, it seems like it should be a built-in component of Docker. It's so nice.
So if I know it's on the Mac. I don't know if it's on other platforms, but if you install the little Docker GUI thing on the Mac, one of the things that installs with is called Matic, Kitematic, I think is what it's called. And it was kind of like a GUI to your Docker environment. This lazy Docker, in my opinion, blows that out of the water. I mean, it gives you so much more information. It's nice. It's really nice. I keep it running usually in one of my tabs. Matter of fact, I can actually fire that up right now for you if you like. Let me for those watching on the stream. Let me see if I have a. Let me go ahead and get a. Let me let me get my terminal up. You can cut all this out for the podcast listeners, but for the people on stream, let's give them something to look at. So I was actually doing some work here on Mission Control, which I keep meaning to stream more of, but haven't done it yet. So I was actually installing Horizon because of some stuff we're doing. But one of the things I just did is I also enabled Docker for Mission Control. So I can fire up my Docker containers. And while that's happening, let's go ahead and open up another tab. While that's happening, we can. I am sharing this, right? Yeah, I'm streaming this one. We'll fire up Lazy Docker. Come on. See? Wait. All right. Yeah, I'll fire up Lazy Docker. And. And well, there's usually an interface here. So isn't that so typical? I go to demo something and it doesn't work. What happened?
This is why
Maybe.
we need John. John's the demoer.
Hmm. Well, that's weird. Yep. Well, I think it has to do with the fact that I'm streaming too. Like it's acting. My terminal is acting really weird. I'm typing stuff and it's taking a very long time to respond. I mean, even my Docker containers haven't come up yet. So, they just crashed anyways. Yeah.
Damn
So I don't
streaming,
know.
it'll always get us.
Every time, man. Every time. But yeah, I mean, I can't demo. Obviously, it's not demoing for us, but yeah, Docker, the lazy Docker is pretty cool when it runs. It's like you said, it's one of the only terminal apps I've ever seen that has mouse support. Like I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
I've seen plenty of terminal apps with mouse support. It's just usually it's very specialized stuff. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like it. I'm very happy to have it.
Yeah. So if you're into Docker, now are you a big Docker person?
No, I'm going through all the documentation now. I'm learning as much as I can about it. Um, I want to get us switched over to Docker environments. I'm sick of dealing with 200 gigabyte VMs. You know,
Yeah. John and I did do so. So John still participates in the other podcasts, believe it or not. And for PHP Architect magazine, we did our PHP podcast this week. And if you subscribe to PHP Architect, you know about this. If you don't, you may want to because they have some fantastic articles in there. But this week they did article on Devilbox, and Devilbox is meant to be kind of this all-in-one solution for Docker. Like you don't really need to understand how to install and configure Docker. Devilbox kind of handles it for you, and it has some really nice features to it. So if you're a Mac person and you're in the Laravel community, and you've probably heard me talk a lot about Valet, because I'm a big Valet person. I still to this day I use a lot of Valet. Um, but one of the cool things about Valet is that once you point Valet to a directory, it assumes every directory within that directory is a website. And so you don't have to go and configure anything when you start a new project. You just do Laravel new project name in that directory, and then all of a sudden you have that website running on your local host. And that's always been one of the real nice features. So it has this DNS that it manages internally,
Right.
and Devilbox is meant to do the same thing. It's supposed to have this internal DNS, but I couldn't get that piece working for me. But everything else worked really well, including the Devilbox also has it spins up a little web interface to your Docker environment, so you can go in there and actually configure things within your Docker environment. Um, so, and the nice thing about Devilbox, Valet is a Mac only solution, but Devilbox actually runs on any. It's just Docker. It runs on any platform. So Windows, Linux, Mac. Really cool. I actually I was playing with this a little bit yesterday, and I, it's one of these weird things where I know enough about Docker where this sort of solution irritates me. It's like it gets in the way. It's like, okay, I don't need this, and this is bothering me, and I know how to configure this. So I don't know if I will personally use this, but I can definitely see somebody who doesn't understand Docker but knows enough to get it up and running wanting to use this, because this essentially becomes your your whole system for Docker. I mean, you can customize what versions of PHP, what databases you have, whether or not you're using Redis. You can even use things that are NoSQL solutions, and you just get up and running. So if you've been struggling with getting Docker going, you might want to check out devilbox.org, and I will add that to the show notes as well.
See, now I'm gonna have to check that out.
It's cool. It's really cool. And like I said, it's meant to be. I mean, it's essentially meant to be a whole system development environment. But see, I'm still. Again, I know enough about Docker now where I like to tweak each one of my projects so that it represents if it's not actually running on Docker in production, it's representing all of those versions of that software. So we have many projects that the Docker configuration that's within the project is actually deployed in production. I love that. I absolutely love that. But
Yeah,
even on
I want to do that.
yeah, that's huge. That's a huge win when you can get to that stage. But even the ones that I don't have, like Mission Control, I just added Docker to it today, and the reason why is because Mission Control is running on the hardware, so I'm customizing Docker so that it's mimicking the versions of the stuff that's Mission Control is running on. So the other developers I have working on it can now have an easier development environment to get up and running. And then ideally, what we'll do is we'll make Docker run production for us. So I was working on that today. That's fun. But yeah, Docker is definitely one of those game changers for me. I told you about having to fire up a virtual machine to install Windows, and that's probably the first
Yes.
time I've fired up a virtual machine in years. I couldn't even tell you the last time I've had to run a virtual machine. Between using Valet and now using Docker, I just don't use virtual machines anymore.
I have a question for you.
Lay it on me, buddy, because I could use questions.
How much would you pay for Red Hat?
Uh, the clothing line or the company or a individual? Are you talking about like an individual like box of software?
$60. You're way off.
Okay. What's up? Well, how much would I pay for it?
IBM has closed its acquisition of Red Hat for
Huh?
$34 billion. dollars.
Wait a minute. 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 Hold the phone. You're saying IBM purchased Red Hat?
IBM has purchased Red Hat.
No crapper. When did this happen?
This happened 2 days ago. It's the
Microsoft is
largest
buying Ubuntu.
largest
Micro-
software acquisition ever.
Microsoft is buying Ubuntu. I can tell you right now, Microsoft is buying Ubuntu. If IBM just bought Red Hat, Microsoft is buying Ubuntu.
I
They
wouldn't be
they have to be.
surprised.
They have to be. Man, that is insane. I did not know about that. Wow,
Yeah,
that's a
it's
lot.
it is a ton of money. It the speculation is that IBM is trying to compete in the same markets as Amazon and Microsoft right now with their shared hosting services like Azure and AWS,
Mm-hmm.
and their acquisition of Red Hat gives them all the flexibility they need for the management tools that are premium through Red Hat that are stacked on top of the open source software. So if you don't know what Red Hat's model is, with things like was it Kubernetes?
Huh?
Is that a Red Hat?
No, no, no.
No, no, no.
CentOS is the open source version.
Well, the way it works with Red Hat is that they have their open source software that they provide, but at the enterprise level or at the consumer level, they have closed source paid tool sets to help you manage these kinds of open source softwares. So this isn't just IBM buying open source software. This is IBM buying a real full fledged, very, very large company.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I could be wrong. It's been a very long time since I followed Red Hat closely. But if I'm not mistaken, uh, the Red Hat model, as you put it, is that they sell everything they have, even their open source software, everything they sell. Um, there's been open, free versions of the software that have forked off from their open source packages like CentOS. The weird thing about it is, so there used to be two. There used to be Fedora and CentOS. Fedora was kind of the open source packages for the desktop, and CentOS was the open source packages for the server. And what was weird, or what made it unique, is that when it happened, Red Hat reached out to these projects, and everybody was like, "Oh, Red Hat's going to shut them down. How are they going to position this?" And Red Hat didn't. Red Hat basically said, "Hey guys, you're packaging together our Red Hat software to distribute free and open source. That's great. It's free and open source software. We want to help you guys package it up correctly because you're missing some components here." And Red Hat actually started working with these projects to make sure that the projects stayed alive so that they could actually focus on their business model. So they no longer worried about supporting an open source community. They worried about their business model of Red Hat and their companies, and then they would allow their employees to work with these projects to make sure that these projects stay healthy.
yeah, and they've also acquired some projects like Ansible.
Right.
When Red Hat acquired Ansible, there was a lot of concern about what's going to happen to this open source project that's currently free for everyone. And Red Hat is maintaining Ansible as Ansible Engine, but they're selling a product called Ansible Tower.
Right.
An Ansible Tower is a GUI with role-based access controls and scheduling, and it just drops right in to connect to Ansible. But that's their premium service.
Right.
So it's a very mixed model, and I'm curious to see how IBM's influence changes things because it's not the big blue that it used to be.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these companies are starting to learn. Like you've seen it with Microsoft, and there are acquisitions of a lot of these open source companies of stay hands off. Like we're not coming in here to change your model. You guys are doing something and it seems to be working. We're here to support you and then make some money off of it. And
Yeah.
hopefully IBM kind of follows that lead of yes, we're not going to come barging in here and switching everything around. Not like Oracle did with Sun and Java.
Ugh. The Oracle does with everything they touch.
Yeah, man, that sucked. I lived through those days, man. Oh my
But it
gosh.
runs on 5 billion devices.
Java, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it does.
runs.
If that's what you want to call it.
I want to see this. I need to know more about this ticket you have on here.
Which one?
Webpack not working if it's Monday.
Yeah, man. How awesome is that? I gotta open up the link. I gotta refresh my memory of it. Oh wait, where's the link? Oh, there it is. Uh, yeah, I saw this. I think this came in on Twitter or something, and I saw that it was on Jeffrey Way's repo for Laravel Mix, and talking about Webpack having issues and this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. And it says so the whole thing says Webpack not working if it's Monday, and it says this error only happens if the day is Monday and the issue has been fixed at the latest version of Webpack. So apparently there was something written in Webpack that if you tried running it, try to do it like an npm run watch on Monday, it would like crash. I'm like, this is the kookiest thing. This can't be real.
We don't
But
have enough trouble with dates as developers. Now it's just Mondays.
it's just, it's like nobody likes Mondays. Apparently, Webpack doesn't like Mondays more than most people don't like Mondays. So yeah, that was funny, man. I do enjoy a good laugh with coding from time to time.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
thought it was a joke.
I'm looking at the code, the offending code here, and it looks like it tries to update the A time. It tries to on Mondays, if you run watch, it tries to update something, tries to sync clocks with something, and it has started failing. That is that is bad.
So I thought you were going. I thought you were going to my other story. I thought that's what you were going to ask me about. That one's funny. So this is another developer story, man. So apparently, the developer of the AHL mobile app, that's the American Hockey League mobile app. I guess he wasn't getting paid or something.
It's what it
So
seems like.
and somebody threatened him. So this developer just decided to spam everybody who has the AHL app on their phone with notifications, and he spammed it with what did it say? Stuart Zimmel threatened to punch Land Bowman in the throat. and he just and he it just did it a bunch, and then it had another notification of Steward, since I have no way to contact you, you owe me nearly $6,000. I would ask you to contact me about payment. And it just kept notifying everybody. And the response from AHL on how to fix it is uninstall this app. Uninstall this app. Like, if you see this notification, uninstall the app.
Right, and their Twitter account said, "We are aware of the issue and are working to resolve it quickly." I bet you are.
Meaning, they're trying to get in touch with somebody in India who has the skill set of coding up coding a mobile app so that they can take care of it because they obviously nobody there knows what they're doing.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's such a constant thing though of outsourced developers not getting paid or people
Hmm.
saying do it for exposure, stuff like that. It's just
Even I mean, even when you're a sole developer, a sole contractor, you get approached with that all the time, or the classic,
it's so
I'm not ha-
dumb.
I'm not happy with your work. I'm not going to pay you for it. But as a company that we have, Diego Dev, we're a small group. We we still get that. People will come to us and like, well, we can't pay you now, but this is going to be, the next Facebook, Uber Eats app, and it's going to be awesome, and you guys can have a percentage of it. It's like, no, we don't work like that. That's
Yeah.
not an option.
Call me
You
when you get
know?
your round one funding from your VCs, then I'll listen.
Yeah, it just amazes me to this day. There's so many people like that. I had somebody I actually respected very much who came to me as Diego Dev. He knew we had started this company. We'd probably been in business for 2 or 3 years by this point, and we're doing well. We weren't at the level we're at now, but we had like 3 or 4 developers, and we were slowly growing. And came to me and says, "Hey, we have this small little shop here, and we want a website. If you guys want to do it, we can't really pay you, but we'll give you the exposure. You can put a little logo on our site saying it was developed by you." I'm like, are
Gee,
you
thanks.
serious? I know. It's like, are you serious? Really? First
20
thing, I
bucks says
know
I
how
could
much.
log into your website and put it on there myself.
No. So that just never stops. That is always happening, and it's you just have to have kind of a across the board stance. I mean, even John and I had made some bad business decisions in which we had agreed to break from our business model, which is the main thing with our business model at Diego Dev is we don't do hourly uh, quoting. We don't do manpower quoting. We don't do quoting based on deliverable timelines or anything like that. What we do is we say, okay, here's our retainer. You pay us that much money a month for however long you want, and we'll just work for you. We'll be your developers, your IT people. So if you think a project's supposed to take 4 months, we'll give you an estimation of whether or not we think we can accomplish that in 4 months. I mean, we're not saying we can, but we'll give you some reasonable ideas of what can be done. And if you're not happy with it, you drop us. That's always kind of been our model, and it works very well for us when we get that model going. But occasionally we have people like, no, 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 I really want to do an hourly per developer or something along that lines, and we because we're trying to this really happened in the past when we were still trying to get our company established. So we would make these compromises, and every time it would bite us in the butt, man. Every damn time. So
Yeah,
we've definitely
yeah.
stopped doing that.
I had an offer once to work for shares in my spare time, and I had
Mm.
I had mentioned it to you guys, to you and John, and both of you had just went, no, 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 don't do that. We like the guy, but don't do that.
And then that guy went on to be a 3 millionaire, and
Yeah.
He has a private jet now. Sorry about that. I mean, we
Well,
really
yeah.
didn't
Didn't see it coming.
didn't see that one coming. No.
I have some stuff to close out the podcast with if you want to go through it with me a little bit.
Close out the. Are we there already? Wow, this is so
Amazingly
quick.
enough,
It's like without John here, you're ready to wrap up. Let's do it, man.
the sound of snoring doesn't slow time down the way it normally would. PHP 7.4. Are you excited?
No,
I am so excited.
lay it on me. Why would you be so excited?
So let's go the quick rundown of what's new. Spread operators being applied to arrays. It's ugly and makes things look confusing, and I don't like it.
I don't like it one bit.
Nope, don't like it. Arrow functions. This is one that we talked about in the past. It has a local scope. It doesn't extend outside of its own scope, and it lets you quickly define functions to execute things like array map, and it's super slick. I really like it. It's very much like JavaScript. So I dig that. Typed properties. You can type int, bool, float, string, array, object, iterable, self, parent, class names, interface names, and you can make them optional with a question mark, so they support nullable types. Null coalescing assignment. This is the same as the null coalescing operator, except that it will assign a default value to a variable if it is not already set, instead of just return a value if not set. It's handy.
What's the difference?
With null coalescing, if I say variable 1, if I echo variable 1 and then null coalescing operator and then default, it will echo the word default. With the null coalescing assignment, it will assign the word default to the variable 1.
Okay. I think I'm gonna have to play with that to understand it. So
And
so so is this a good example of it? Are you looking at my screen? Is this a good example of what we're talking about here?
yeah,
Okay. I love the Elvis operator. That's nice. Oh.
hmm
All right.
uh, and then the one we talked about previously, which is supporting underscores in numeric literals.
Underscores and numeric literals, and you were not a fan of this, correct?
I was not a fan of it, but after talking to you guys, it grew on me, so I'll deal with it.
Well, good.
I'm okay with it.
I'm glad we were able to influence you.
It's pretty universal in other languages to use underscores in this way.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, it turns out it's like C Sharp, C++, Java, Python. They all support this type of separation of characters.
Cool.
But
But
that's not why I'm excited.
no, of course not.
I'm excited because preloading is now part of PHP 7.4.
Preloading. Well, what's preloading?
Preloading is similar to opcache. However, with opcache, the relationship between objects, the relationship between things in the code, aren't established. However, in preloading, those relationships are established, and the interaction between everything is much faster. It's almost like compiling, almost.
Really?
Um, the trick here with preloading is that you have to say which files are going to be preloaded. You have to write a script that is executed by the FPM, and if those files change, FPM will not pick up on that automatically. It will have to be restarted to pick up on file changes. Not a huge deal for me. My production stuff, it restarts the web server when we do pushes, so I don't care about that. the
So
the
this
thing
says,
is though,
say you want to preload a framework Laravel, for example, your script will have to loop over all the PHP files in the vendor Laravel directory, include them one by one. Here's how you'd link the script in your PHP INI. Oh, so it's a PHP INI setting?
it is. So the PHP INI, you point it towards the script that picks the files that need to be pre-cached or preloaded, and that script returns, just an array of file names, and those get preloaded by the opcache compiler.
Hmm.
Um, this is a significant improvement in performance. Um, some sample scripts are showing upwards of 13 to 16% improvement in performance.
17, yeah.
But what I'm anxious about is the composer community took this as their call to action. And so right now in development is a functionality for composer to generate this preloading script,
Wow.
because as one of the developers for composer found, uh, preloading everything is not optimal. If you find out what your quote unquote hot classes are and just preload those, then you get significantly improved memory usage and performance.
Hmm.
He found that in his test script, he got 16% improvements with hot classes and only 13% improvements when caching everything. And so, this idea of identifying hot classes is being rolled into Composer so that you can just say, Composer identify hot classes, or Composer cache everything, or
And
whatever the commands will be.
that would be like a that would be would that be something like the maintainer of a framework would do? Like they would know what classes would be best.
This thread is extremely long, and I don't understand a large amount of what's being said in it. Um, they're talking about pointer value sizes and thresholds for memory opcache memory limits, and it's it's a lot of stuff. So I don't understand it completely, which is why I'm glad that Composer's taking it over, because I'd rather Composer handle things I don't understand.
That's exactly what. That's why I'm asking. Is like, is this something I'm going to have to figure out, or are maintainers of the projects going to figure this out for me? And
I
if nothing
believe
else,
Composer itself is going to figure it out for you.
well, I mean, Composer wouldn't be able to know what hot classes there would be. I mean, there's no way for Composer to know that.
No, but it could tell frequently linked libraries or frequently
That's true.
referenced
Yeah.
stuff. So you could say, my classes that are referenced all over the place, as well as, I mean, if it's Laravel, then cache your HTTP classes and stuff like that. I'm sure there will be a little work that you will need to do, and that I highly doubt that Taylor's going to drop in and set all the settings for us, but I'm sure somebody will.
Yeah, I mean, somebody, as long as it's something somebody could go into and submit a pull request on, that would be ideal. But yeah, I would love that. I think that would, it amazes me how much PHP continues to improve. Like, just when you think this is, I mean, this is awesome. From 5.6 to 7, it's like these performance increases are incredible. It won't get any better than this, and then it continues to get better and better and better. I really hope other developers don't figure this out. Like the developers who hate PHP, I really hope they don't figure this out and start to want to code in PHP, because I don't want to fight more developers for contracts.
I don't think you'll need to. There's still that one article out there that says that PHP is bad. They keep
Okay,
pointing at that one.
there you go. As long as that stays out there, keep the haters hating.
Yeah, and I'm sure, as Buttery Crumpets mentions here in Discord, I'm sure there will be alternatives to this. That Composer is just one way of doing this, but you could very much pull up a log file or Blackfire log and determine from there what your hot classes are, and set optimal thresholds for everything. Because it's a script that you define yourself, you'll be able to do pretty much anything you choose to do. You can write your own script to look through your log files and point them towards the right classes.
Yep.
I wish Laravel routes were better.
What problem do you have with Laravel routes?
They're not the most parsable. Laravel routes are one of the things that have had the most change in its documented usage. I still see people with a lot of routes that aren't named, and that they use the route function to point to a URL endpoint instead of a route name, or the uses method. It takes a string for the class name and the method name, and it's not the most parsable thing. And if you're using route caching and you have a route that's got a function call instead of the array reference, then it doesn't properly cache it. And more and more. I have lots of complaints about routing in Laravel, but I don't have a solution.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the routing. I've always liked it. So.
It needs a PSR.
All right. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I think we burned through this show pretty quickly. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good show.
I don't know if we had enough funny. Well, we had one funny thing you could use when you edit the show. So, yeah, pretty good, man. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there and call it a day. For those still here, still listening, I'm still Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
I'm putting the music back on for the people who like to stick around. Can I give you a hard time? Are you open to getting a hard time?
Sure.
Can you hear the music?
No.
No. Oh, that's right. I think I need to turn it on. I turned it off because you were hearing it. I stopped playing it. There it goes. Now it's going. You hearing it?
Yes.
Okay. Are you awake? You almost seem like you're asleep the whole show.
It's been a rough week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, man. All right. I just want to make sure. I mean, I can take this off air if you want to talk about it.
No, but I do want to tell you. Let me end my recording.
Oh yeah, let me do that.
Yeah, I had a 2-hour recording of yours last time.
Yeah, that's totally right. And normally, that's not the first time I've done that. And normally I go in there and edit it, and I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, oh, fuck it, just tell have to deal with it. I'm
no big deal.
I'm going to turn on Dropbox. No, I won't. I'll be turning on Dropbox.
You got to stop the music though. That's louder than you.
I think that's just for you, man. Hold on, let me turn it down here. Alright.
There you go.
Okay.
So, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and it was the craziest thing. It was the craziest conversation I've ever had because it opened my eyes to the most bizarre of political opinions.
Okay, we're still streaming. No, you heard me say that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So he was trying to explain that he was an expert in politics, and that he bases, his political position off of factual information, not opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts going off about all of this opinion-oriented stuff, how the Clintons are evil and the Clinton Foundation, and et cetera, et cetera. He just sort of goes off on this random tangent about how he feels about politicians.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped. I'm like, whoa, okay. We started by saying facts, not opinions. I'm not going to engage in the conversation unless you're dealing with somebody who can deal with logic. So give me the factual point you're trying to make. And he looks at me and says, well, Benghazi. And I was like, okay, go on. You have my interest. He says the whole thing is Hillary Clinton's fault. And I said, I've seen that position made.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
But go on. What is your position on that? He said, well, if she hadn't kept her emails on a private server, then her emails would never have gotten hacked, and the location of our troops would never have been disclosed to terrorists. And I looked at him like, I don't understand the relationship, the location of Benghazi. He says, yeah, our troops in Benghazi. The location was in her emails, and they got hacked, and terrorists attacked our troops there. And I looked at him like, do you know what Benghazi is? He said, yeah, our troops. Like, and I said, you think it was a secret military movement in Benghazi that got attacked? And he said, yeah, and it was her fault because of the emails. And I looked at him like, it was the U.S. Embassy. And it was months before her email account got hacked or her email account got disclosed. Her email account never got hacked. It never led to leaking of classified information. And he goes, no, it got our troops killed. I was like, our troops who were in the U.S. Embassy. And he goes, yeah, the secret location. It's like, you don't know what an embassy is then either, do you? An embassy, the most public building that a foreign government has on foreign land. The most well-known building we have of any kind. And I realized that his news source was just conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. And that they did not disclose any information connected to reality that would contradict what they were saying. So he was 100% convinced that Hillary Clinton was directly responsible for the attack on Benghazi and had no idea what the actual news story was.
Well, have you ever seen, kind of leading down this path of crazy conspiracists and how they don't really get the full story? Have you ever seen the ones that argue, why was Obama on vacation when 9/11 happened?
Yes.
It's like, you do understand he wasn't president then, right? No, they don't. They don't get it. Their whole sense of history and what happened and when it happened and who was where just gets completely warped. And then they find these nuggets of community that just feed into it and support it. And it's just like, oh my God. You can't be, nobody can even have an intelligent conversation with you right now.
Well, yeah, it was literally impossible to have a conversation with him because he wouldn't accept that the timeline wasn't correct and that the location of the American embassy was public knowledge. Like, he wouldn't accept that.
I meant that I wasn't going to share on the show, but look what I picked up.
Oh, what's that?
Sure,
that's the new.
Well,
no, that's the nice one.
Yeah, it's the Stratus. So I went with the Stratus because it's specifically, it was the only one that specifically said that it was water resistant. Like, I could swim in it. So all the other ones, it didn't say it. It didn't say that it was, you could swim in it. So I went with probably the more expensive one. It was the more expensive one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice. I mean, I have the problem. So I mean, I have big wrists, so like it barely fits. I can barely get like the niche.
But it's a standard band, right?
Exactly, right. So I'll probably end up going getting a new band for it, which is pretty typical for me.
I would recommend that because the day after you messaged me about which watch I had,
Yeah.
I got a chemical burn from my band.
A chemical burn. From
Yeah.
your band?
Yeah, I got a chemical burn on my wrist.
It's plastic.
It's silicone rubber.
Huh.
I guess I was sweating a lot that day, and I had it on too tight, and it ripped right through my wrist. It was
Wow.
It was a mess.
So yeah, I'll probably get another band. It's you know, like I said, it's okay. It's definitely not Android. It's not the Android OS or what the Wear OS.
Right. But it's
so
like $100 cheaper too.
Exactly. So it's so for this one that I got, I think it's a little pricey for. Like it feels kind of not cheap, but it doesn't feel as durable as my Fossil. So for this was I think like 160, 170. I mean it was sub 200, which I thought was reasonable. But you know, yeah, maybe a little pricey. But yours are under 100. Yours was under 100, right?
Yeah, and the new one without GPS built into it is like 50.
Right, and so assuming it's the same OS, which I'm sure it is, what's in it is the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What this piece that's running is probably the same as what you have. The only difference is what they did to seal this in and stuff. So for a sub $100, this would be a really good watch. Like I'm sure like what you have is a really good watch for a sub $100.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I think, and even this, like I said, this was sub 200. I think it was like 160, 170. Even this, I've only had it for a couple days, so I'm still getting used to it, and I'm still learning like what notifications I actually get and which ones I don't. The biggest thing that I don't have is I don't have control over my media, so on my Wear OS, I can pause I put in my Bluetooth headset, I have my music playing, I can pause, I can actually turn up the volume and stuff through my watch. That's the biggest thing I'm missing here, and I don't think this gives me Hangout notifications or Slack or any of those others, but it did give me, it did give me a couple, it gave me a Facebook notification. It did give me a couple notifications, and one of them I was actually surprised it gave me, but yeah, I'm getting used to it. Like, I would totally recommend even this. Like, even somebody who's like, oh, I have about $150 to $200 to spend on a watch, I would feel confident recommending this to them. But again, I've only had it for a couple days. So I noticed that, I'm looking at it now, so I think the screen's a little bigger, and I have my brightness turned up because I noticed I was having a hard time seeing it. And I see that I lost about 10% of power in 24 hours. So yeah. So that's probably what?
Yeah, and this one is IPS 68, which means that it can get dunked in water, but it can't like sit in water.
Right. And I really wanted something I could swim in. Because I wanted to kind of measure my activity while I'm swimming and stuff like that. So I just kind of played it safe on that. And I'm just going to spend a little extra and get the swim watch. So I need to really think about the band though, because I was liking this band because it was rubber, and again thinking along the lines of I'm going to use it for swimming and sports and stuff like that. So I'm sure I can buy another rubber band.
Or you can get the super stylish nylon one that everyone has on their Tag Heuer watches.
That is. But yeah, I'm liking it. It did tell me to get up today and walk around. I told it to fuck off. I'm working.
So I told you, it told me to give up on my dreams.
You'll never achieve anything.
Yeah, why are you even trying?
Oh. Oh man, so I'm happy you're coming to World, man.
Yeah, I just got to stay on Jose about it. He's working on getting the budget for it put together.
I'm sure you can talk sweet to John. He'll share his room with you.
Well, I want my own room for my night drinking.
That's how I was too. John asked me, he's like, you just want to share a room, like, you know, and I'm serious. I'm like, he thinks he wants to share a room with me, but my wife doesn't sleep with me. I have night terrors. My doctor has told me I need to see they want a sleep study on me, but they want a neurologist to do a sleep study because I hit myself when I sleep. Like I scream and I hit myself. And the doctor was like, yeah, no, you're fucked up. we want somebody who knows what they're doing to take a look at you. So I have to.
Do you sleep on your back or on your side?
I sleep all over the place. I mean, I literally, like, if my wife is in bed with me, which is the majority of the time because she works at night, I will roll and I will twist. And I roll and twist. So I wake up, and sometimes my head's at the foot of the bed, and then I get up, my head's at the other side, and I'm on my stomach, I'm on my back, I'm on my side.
You should try a weighted blanket.
I like blankets, and I actually sleep with a lot of blankets on me in the wintertime when it's cold enough, and it makes sense to do it. But yeah, it's not that. It's just there's something going wrong in my head. I mean, it's like when I dream now, and I know the difference. Like I used to have, when I was younger, I used to have very lucid dreams. Like I could think of something as I'm falling asleep to make sure I dreamt about it. So I would think of baseball, or I'd think of something, and I'd fall asleep. And not only would I dream about it, but I had control over my dreams. Like I was always one of these people who I was very aware I was in a dream. And I could say, well, okay, when this guy pitches this ball, I'm going to hit a home run, and boom, And it was just like I loved sleeping. And that was one of the problems. That's why I slept so much when I was younger, because it was my world. I had control over it.
Right.
And I used to be really good. Now, within probably, I don't know. I swear to God, I hate pointing back to this time in my life, but ever since chemo, something fucked up in my head, man. And ever since chemo, I have no control. If I dream, if I actually have a dream, I have no control over it. There are horrifying images, and those are the things I can remember. And apparently, I've just this progression of night terrors, of me screaming and punching myself, and slapping myself, which I don't know I'm doing. My wife, told me, and then she actually went in and told the doctor, and that's what the doctor's like, okay, whoa, red flag. But I know that I don't sleep well, and I always contributed to my weight. Like I'm getting better, I'm getting bigger, I'm not sleeping well. But no, man, there's something wrong, man. There's like something happened when I went through chemo that my mind and my body really just hasn't recovered from, even to this day. And we're talking, it's been, I mean, that was 2005, right? So it's been 14 years. I mean, this isn't just happened,
Well, the Canadian Cancer Society says that night terrors can be a side effect of chemotherapy.
But like for the rest of your life, though? I mean, like this doesn't get better. It doesn't fix, like, whatever, because the chemo didn't go through, and I mean, like nothing in my brain got touched. You know what I mean? Like,
well, all of your brain got touched. It's that chemo is gonna fuck everything up.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's been rough, man. I'm not lying. And as I get older, it's getting worse. So I'm definitely going to have to do this sleep study just to see what they come up with, but that's,
Do you have migraines?
No, I don't have migraines. I get, so I have other conditions where, I have to have injections and stuff because, I'll get like these muscle, and I have the issue where the palms of my hands and the palms of my feet are super sensitive. So
Huh.
it's like whenever I walk barefoot, it almost always feels like I'm walking on Legos, sort of thing. And I got all, I mean, just like all these like weird things that are going on. But I don't know, man. I figure I won't be around here much longer. I eat too much meat according to John, so my heart's gonna seize up any day now.
Boy, his Facebook has gotten active